I noticed some videos recently of yours, Paul, about ocean acidification.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could kind of put that into word format for us
Yes.
here,
Yes.
here now. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the the video, actually, before I talk about that, that
Yeah.
was video 2, and that the very last one I posted is called, and I think it's a good video. It's kind of funny. It's called Climate System Rant in a Snowstorm. A few days ago in Ottawa, we had snow, and then we had freezing rain, and then we had torrential rain. Then it went back to freezing rain. It went back to snow. This kept on and on for about 30 hours, I guess. And needless to say, it was a huge mess. And I was walking home from the university late at night, and I thought, okay, I'd brought an umbrella because it was, the rain earlier. And then, but of course, it was snowing. It was a snowstorm, a blizzard when I was walking home. And I started filming, and the umbrella was getting heavier and heavier and heavier because of the weight of the snow on it. But anyway, that video, have a look at that. I talk about a lot of different things, hopefully, mostly semi-coherently. And
Well,
and
that'd
then,
be an
but the video,
improvement, you know.
yes, but the videos before that, I did 2 videos on the evil twin of climate change, which is nowhere near discussed as much as it needs to be, and that's ocean acidification.
Yeah.
The the ocean covers, of course, a vast part of our planet. What is it, 70%? I mean, us land-dwelling creatures know a lot about where we live in the land, but we know very little about the oceans unless, we sometimes go on, ships, etc. But we don't really know what's going on. So there's huge changes, of course, occurring in the ocean. One of the biggest changes is the CO2 that gets dissolved in the ocean forms carbonic acid, which is a weak acid, much weaker than vinegar even, and this goes into so when it rains, the raindrops absorb some of the CO2 in the atmosphere, carry it into the ocean, making the surface of the ocean more acidic. Now, the acidity of the ocean is measured on a logarithmic scale, a pH scale. So pH of 7 is neutral. The pH of human blood is very close to the pH of seawater, which is about 8.2. This is not accidental. We evolved from the sea, and our blood still has very similar chemical composition to seawater in terms of pH levels. Now, in the last 30, 40 years, the pH of the open ocean has dropped from 8.2 to 8.05. That doesn't seem like a large drop, but it's a logarithmic scale. So that represents an increase in acidity of about 30%. So there's more hydrogen ions. So why is this a problem? When we get down to 7.9 or 7.8, then many of the phytoplankton that use calcium carbonate in their shells or backbones will not be able to form those backbones because the calcium carbonate will dissolve in the more acidic seawater. So this is going to become a very, very big problem. It is starting to be a big problem now. Of course, the ocean mixes in the vertical direction, and so the pH, as you go deeper, the pH normally does increase anyway, and it will increase more. Another factor is that the ocean, because it's warming so much, it gets stratified. In other words, it gets broken up into layers. Warm water temperature is a measure of how the average speed of molecules. So as you increase the temperature, the average motion of the molecules in the water or material increases, so they push each other further apart. So there's less of them per unit volume, so they become lighter. Hot air rises, that drives the climate system. Hot water rises. The warmer the surface of the ocean is, the higher that water wants to rise, and the less vertical mixing there is of the water. So the problem is we need vertical mixing at the surface in order to get nutrients there from deep deeper down in order for phytoplankton to grow. So algae and phytoplankton that are the base of the food chain will not grow as well with a stratified ocean. Also, less mixing means that acidic water at the surface doesn't mix with water that is less acidic, slightly below it. So it does affect, it threatens the entire marine food chain. And remember that phytoplankton, you know, I guess we can, how do we adapt to this? Hold your breath, only breathe at half the speed that you normally breathe at. So hold your breath for every second breath, right? This is one way we could adapt to this, because about half of the oxygen that we get is from the ocean. So basically every other breath, that oxygen is from the oceans. The other half is from plants on land, including boreal forests, Amazon rainforests, etc., things like that. So obviously it's not possible to, only breathe every other breath. So if we lose all the life in the oceans, it is very unlikely that life will survive for much longer on land, whereas the opposite is not true. If all life was lost on the land, then the oceans would do just fine. The other thing is, as oceans become stratified and hotter and don't mix as much and become more acidic, then there's always a problem of there's not much oxygen going down to deeper levels. So we get deoxygenation, and we get these dead zones at the bottom. And then the only thing really working away to decompose organic matter on the seafloor, for example, in these oxygen-free zones, is bacteria, microorganisms that will decompose the organic material, producing hydrogen sulfide. And of course, hydrogen sulfide has that rotten egg smell. It's a very toxic gas. And one of the ideas from Peter Ward, who's written books about mass extinctions in the past and about the so-called Canfield Ocean, has talked about the oceans becoming basically a source of hydrogen sulfide, which then takes out everything on land, basically causing mass extinction. And his book Under a Green Sky, is quite a terrifying read on how these processes can develop, and they have happened in the past. So systems of the Earth systems and how they all interact. We have the lithosphere, which is the rocks. We have the biosphere, the plants and animals, also known as flora and fauna. We have the cryosphere, which some books consider it just part of the hydrosphere. Some treat it separately. We have the atmosphere, and so those are the five. And you change something in one of these systems, and it changes everything.
So Paul, if people are interested in getting this book, what's it called, and who's it by, so we can all get a really good take on the systems?
Well, this book is a textbook that we use. It's called Geosystems. The author, it's by Christopherson, Birkeland, Byron, and Giles. The 2016 edition is the 4th edition. You can get it as a Canadian edition or a U.S. edition. And I'm also proceeding on my book. I have an outline, and I'm almost finished a couple chapters, and then I will try to find a publisher in New York. I have some connections already set up on that sort of vein.
So what is it called? Let me guess. Would it be called Farewell to Hopium and Geoengineering and Carbon Capture?
I don't know. The title, usually you come up with that at the very end, and the publisher ends up changing it anyway, right? So, but no. As you said, I had the gift of the gab, so you can actually talk at about much faster rate than you can write. So obviously, I'm going to be talking my book. I'll lock myself in a room for a week, and I'll just talk constantly. I'll have dictation. I'll have software to capture my voice and to put it to text, and then I'll edit that. I'll have probably twice as much as I need for a decent-sized book, and then I'll edit it down, and that will be my book. No formulas, no diagrams. It's for the general public, just saying what the hell's going on and what they can expect in the future.
Right. That sounds excellent, Paul. That sounds excellent.
So that's a project that's in the works. And I've got some projects which I will initiate soon on basically crowd sourcing. I'd like to crowd generate peer-reviewed papers.
All right.
So I'd like to write a prescription for what needs to be looked at. For example, jet streams. We need to see how wavy they're becoming, how often they're crossing the equator, the flow rates of air over the equator, the duration of them crossing the equator, how high they are, the speeds, all the details, and then analyze all that data over time, the last, say, 5 or 10 years, and see whether things are to see not whether, but how things. See, I already know the answer, but it has to be proven with the data.
Yeah, right? So, that's a great
I'm
idea.
Lazy, right? I'm lazy, and I want other people on social media to do the analysis, send me the graphs, and then I'll put together the final paper, and I'll have like 100 names on the paper or something.
Sounds like an absolutely great idea, because you're not going to get funded probably any other way.
Yeah, and then I'll do it. I've got about 10 different topics. That would be 10
Excellent.
papers. And, Joe Smith in Timbuktu can count something.
I wonder if
the database and get his name on a paper.
I wonder if NASA can get funded similarly, or the climate scientists in NASA can get funded similarly. I noticed there was NASA put up a post yesterday about why climate change is so important in the life of the Arctic marine animal life as well. And I was just wondering, I put up a post myself, as this is a sort of bid, please let us keep our jobs, because
well, that's what it's coming down to. I mean,
it is,
I have a theory about that now.
Go for it.
So Putin, he knows that Trump is a complete idiot, so he can get him to do whatever he wants. So if he gets Trump to lay off all the scientists at NASA, they can all be hired in Russia, right? Mm-hmm. And that will make their space program and their military technology, that will advance it at huge rates, right? So it's all a ploy to get some of the best scientists in the world and technology people in the U.S. To move to Russia.
Oh, dearie me! Do you think Trump has overlooked this?
I think he may have, and also China. China's committed to spending, I think, $340 billion by 2020 on windmills and solar farms. So renewable energy, right? And
it's a bit of a misnomer, actually, the word renewable, isn't it? For me it is anyway, because it suggests it's sustainable. And it isn't sustainable, and it's not reliable either. And
it's not reliable. How do you mean it's not reliable?
Well, it's not reliable in the terms of weather weirding. It's not reliable in that sense. I don't think half of the structures that we have built at the moment are up to withstanding some of the currents that are going to be pounding them, and some of the winds that are going to be pounding. In fact, reports I get from renewable sites, so there are massive amount of damage being done to them. And also the fact, just if you just let me finish a little bit, there's there's a vast amount of finite materials contained within these within all sorts of renewable energy, and we're talking about 7.5 billion people here, and aspiring towards a Western lifestyle and renewable energy of all these different kinds powering this lifestyle, which is based on a planet which is running out of resources, which they need these resources for this lifestyle. So the whole thing just seems a complete. Just to go back to it, it's the whole word renewable.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I think you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I mean, population is, it's just out of control. I mean, it's sure the growth rate is slowing down, but it's still exponential growth. And yeah, we're having trouble. We're struggling.
Where were we? Yeah, the sea and all that stuff, the corals, and
yes.
you did say something.
We're talking about infrastructure too, right? And
yeah,
you're right. I mean, Trudeau in Canada goes and he approves a bunch of pipelines, and this is going to go in the courts for years because First Nations peoples that have been on the land well before Europeans came over and Canada was founded. That's their land, and they don't want, building pipelines. The infrastructure that we have in our society is being devastated by extreme weather events and by climate change. So people build a pipeline, and the corrosion, pipelines or infrastructure is meant in the northern hemisphere. It's more difficult, or if the higher latitude you go, the more seasonality you'll have in the climate. The colder the winters are, the warmer the summers will be, right? You have the huge swings, and stuff is designed for that. For example, when you build a railway, you can actually heat if the average temperature in a region is, say, 10, 15 degrees Celsius, then you'll actually heat the rail to that temperature, and then you'll weld it together. So when the temperature cools, of course, the metal contracts. When it gets hotter than that, it expands. But if the average temperature, it's built for an average temperature to minimize stress year-round on it. But of course, when we have an extreme weather event, we have the jet stream bringing a trough over that region in the, in sort of the fall, or I don't know, whatever season. It can be like minus 20 degrees Celsius there. Everything shrinks, right? Metals, private organs of males. The point is the infrastructure of the rail. Okay, so it'll contract, and then as the jet stream passes over this region, and you're suddenly in the crest or peak of the wave, and now it's 20 degrees warmer than normal, so it can be 20 degrees Celsius or something. The stress is tremendous on this rail. It's not designed to go from those temperature extremes one to the other in the space of a few days, which happens often now. And also with torrential rains and flooding, the rivers get swollen, and when they're swollen, they scour the banks and the bed of the river more. So if you've got a pipeline buried underneath, it can be exposed by the huge flow rates of the river all of a sudden, and that can carry debris also hitting the pipe under the river, or if some of the pipes are suspended off the bottom. And also these temperature swings can increase the corrosion rates of materials. And there's all kinds of issues. It's not just
including
bridges.
Including renewable technology, must I say?
Absolutely, everything. Yes. So these things are, and I know one of the big things in the Trump platform was to have tremendous spending increases on infrastructure. And this is one thing that Trudeau has been doing, greatly increasing spending on infrastructure. These type of stresses are showing up as sinkholes in some locations, right? And the infrastructure is designed for certain temperature tolerances, rates of change of temperature, and also for hydrology tolerances.
And I presume the stuff that is maybe getting designed now is in line with sort of IPCC predictions, yeah?
Well, one would hope, but I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
But I mean, that's the best we can hope for.
But that's the way we have to. Yeah, we have to like it's.
No, yes, but that'll be too conservative. But that is the best we can hope for. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I guess the thing is we can't use climate averages of what happened in the past.
Mm.
You know, a 1 in 100 year flood, what the heck does that mean when it happens every year? It's not a 1 in 100 year anymore. The statistics of the climate, of weather change, and we need to realize and recognize these changes. And we also need to have more scientists come out and say what's really going on. I mean, obviously, science is completely biased towards being conservative. And we know, I mean, Google climate change faster than expected, and you get gazillions of articles. Google climate change slower than expected, you get nothing. If we understood the climate system, then in a reasonable fashion, then we would have equal numbers of faster than expected and equal numbers of slower than expected. But we don't have any slower than expected.
Well, the Republicans have been a bit amiss there, haven't they, with their articles?
Yes, the Republicans. Yes, they don't know what to do now because they realize that most of their election promises are untenable and will completely destroy the country. For example, all they talked about was getting rid of Obamacare, right? And now
Yep.
they're starting to realize that if they actually get rid of Obamacare and don't replace it with something else, then it's going to cause huge economic losses to people will be sicker for longer periods of time. So, you won't have a healthy workforce, right? You'll
Yeah.
have the costs of doing business, productivity of companies will plummet, morale will plummet, people will be out on the streets, many more people, and that costs people. This is why saying that we'll have a country like Finland saying we're going to have a minimum salary, a minimum income for people that live in our country each year. And that actually saves governments huge amounts of money because people are healthier. They don't
Mm-hmm.
worry as much. They can actually, they can be an artist or be a chess player or pursue something for a few years, and they know they're not going to be out on the street.
Mm.
So governments save tremendous amounts of money on health care. The people that do want to work
Mm-hmm.
are a lot healthier and so on. So this minimum income, it's going to be an interesting experiment in Finland, but I think this is the way we're going in Western societies because it's not, I mean, the middle class has lost out on jobs because technology is changing. The artificial intelligence and the advances of technology are wiping out numerous jobs, right? And what are these people doing? I mean, imagine if we come up with the driverless car, say in the next decade. How
Mm.
many jobs? Taxi drivers, truck drivers. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs in most countries, even millions of jobs in the US, for example. And these are decent paying jobs for people, right? And they'll be completely wiped out by the technological advances. So,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
the
I
tech,
mean, the living wage, the living wages have been proposed a long, long time ago. I mean,
yes,
it's we're talking. I remember it in the early 80s. The Green Party proposing a living wage, and nobody ever took it seriously. So it's interesting
no,
that
I know,
it's
I know,
it's
and
interesting that
those.
Finland is taking it seriously. But do you think that Trump might resign? I mean, when he finds out that it's not quite what he expected it to be, it's just going to get all too much for him. I think he expected possibly just getting people dropping grapes in his mouth and sitting like like a king with a crown on by the beach or something, and just like signing papers. I think he's starting to wise up a bit. I think he's going to get too much for him. He might lose the plot.
Yeah, well, it's you know,
It's a real
yeah,
job.
it's a very dynamic situation. I mean,
Yeah,
it's abrupt. We have abrupt political change going on right now,
yeah,
right? When I talk
yeah,
about abrupt system change or thresholds being reached or things changing, jumping from one state to another, I mean, we have that in U.S. politics in spades, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's going on. I mean, this is an abrupt. change. I mean, what I don't get is there's so many inconsistencies in the U.S. I mean, you have reports from the Pentagon and the U.S. Navy and Air Force and
Mm.
military talking about how climate change is going to is affecting all their bases, especially the Navy. You know, bases are going to be
Yeah.
submerged. So climate change is a threat to the stability of the U.S. It's a threat to their military might. It's a threat. It's an existential threat to us, and it's a threat multiplier, right?
Yeah.
Multiplying other threats, and they recognize this, and they say so. Surely they must recognize that Trump is a huge risk and danger to the U.S., right? I mean, you can't have the logic of one without the other. I mean, climate deniers running the show are a threat to all of humanity, and these people will be seen as basically mass murderers. I mean, we lose about 5 million people, 6 million people in the world today because of things like air pollution, climate change, food supply, water supply being decimated in areas that are very poor, causing deaths.
Yeah.
And
I think the figure is probably higher than that, Paul.
higher, yeah, it's higher. It's higher than that. I mean, you can, look at Syria alone, one country. It broke the country apart effectively. The root cause of the huge drought in the rural
Yeah.
parts of Syria, and like people are going to have a field day. With like these people are all going to be on trial for mass murder if they're in power for very long and they get out of all the climate accords and we know how badly things are turning. Like that's of course if the truth gets out there because they also have are we going to lose the ability to know anything that's true or not? Basically, the way the propaganda. I mean, it's propaganda outright. I mean, I asked for my kids. They've been one kid is studying animal farm in school, and his brother 2 years older is studying 1984, George Orwell's 1984. And another kid was reading Fahrenheit 451. I remember all of these books, reading them in grade school myself. And I said to them, let me borrow your copies. As soon as you have a book like that, I got to read it. And, Future Shock is another one. Toffler. Anyway, for Christmas presents, I got a copy of most of these books from my kid. So it was good. It gave them something to, gave them an easy, not too expensive gift for me. You can't go wrong with books. So. But anyway,
a nice way to introduce them to the subject as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how prescient some of these books are, how vitally important they are, and the story just hasn't changed.
So let's just end then on that I fancy that Trump has now got the first real job he's ever had, and he won't like it.
Yes,
and I think he will disappear from the scene and go to the Bahamas or something.
I think, yeah. I mean, all cards are on the table.
Yeah.
Like people are trying. I mean, it's sort of, people are. Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think I don't. I mean, he'll be impeached the first day, maybe, right?
Well, yeah, maybe.
He's starting. He seems to have a war, a vendetta on the CIA and FBI and NSA, like all of the U.S. Security organizations. He seems to be against all of them,
yeah.
And he'll want to install his own people and stuff. And these are very powerful organizations, and I'm sure that if they wanted to, I'm sure that they're actively trying to get everything they possibly can on the guy.
Yeah, well, I think
he's going to be impeached. It's just a matter of when.
He just came out of a meeting with the FBI, CIA directors today. Yeah, there was a meeting with them, and his comment was they were constructive.
Constructive, yeah.
Constructive in his downfall, hopefully, Anyway, on that note, Paul, it's been wonderful speaking to you again. I always enjoy our chats, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
It's like being in the front living room with you.